In honor of the veterans who have served our country, both past and present, First National Bank, a Franklin family community bank, proudly sponsors Veterans of the Valley. Since 1862, First National has provided local decision-making and accessibility, as well as banking products and services to Brazos Valley citizens.
Hello and welcome to Veterans of the Valley. I'm Tom Turbeville. Last week we introduced you to Dr. Douglas Starr, who many an Aggie journalism student knows as Professor Starr. But you know him now as World War II veteran Doug Starr, Navy sonarman aboard the tin-can USS Nicholas. Today we'll talk about and we'll see some incredible photos from what Doug Starr witnessed up pretty close, the official end of World War II. The signing of the Japanese Instrument of Surrender aboard the USS Missouri, 2 September 1945. And there was Korea aboard the USS Walk and his post-war life as a journalist for Associated Press and the path that brought him to Texas A&M in 1986. Please welcome back to Veterans of the Valley, Professor Douglas Starr. Great to have you back and great to continue what's really a fascinating story. For those who weren't with us last week, we can't repeat all of that, but you were aboard the USS Nicholas, and we talked about what that ship, that destroyer, did in the war, 13 battle stars that you were involved in. And then talk about 2 September 1945, obviously a very historic date, the date of the signing of the surrender of Japan, and how the USS Nicholas was involved that day and the days leading up to it. Go ahead.
Okay, we were lead ship in Halsey's, Admiral Halsey's Third Fleet off the coast of Japan, 55 days, waiting to go in to take in the landing party to attack the home island of Japan in case the Japanese decided not to surrender. And toward the end of this 55-day thing, there were negotiations going on between President Truman and the Emperor. And he told him he had a bomb, and the Emperor didn't believe it, so we dropped the bomb. And the Emperor said, well, you don't have another one. And Truman said, yes, I do. And he didn't believe that, so we dropped another one, and then the war was over. Well, the projected casualty rate would have been 1 million soldiers and sailors. And so that it stopped all of that carnage. So instead of going in as an attacking force, we went in as an occupying force. But to go in, we needed pilots and interpreters and all that because Sagami Bay, which is the entrance to Tokyo Bay, was mined, and we didn't know where the mines were. And so we had to have people to tell us. So they sent out a gunboat with all of these interpreters and pilots. We picked them up. We transferred them to the Missouri and to other ships. And then we led the formation to Sagami. That evening, we anchored in the bay. There was Mount Fuji off in the distance, beautiful mountain, looked like a little pile of sugar. It's there with a snow-capped top. And when the sun started to go down, the captain ordered darkened ship, which was routine in a dangerous place. And when Admiral Halsey saw all the ships go dark, he got on the radio and he told all ships light ship because he wanted to impress the Japanese that we weren't afraid of them. We were, because we didn't know what they were going to do. But fortunately, they obeyed the Emperor and did not do anything against us. So we slept through the night. Right.
Yeah. And then into Tokyo Bay, and you touched on it, but I want to talk more about the signing of the surrender and the people that you picked up, the dignitaries that you picked up, some 65, I believe, or so dignitaries from China, all the allied nations, plus American admirals and generals. This, when you think back of it, this was quite an awesome responsibility. And did you realize at the time the history that you were witnessing?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I was only 19 years old, so what do you know when you're 19 years old? But yeah, I kind of thought this is really something I'll tell my father when I get home that of course he knew it, but I was going to tell him anyway. And we spent that night in Sagami, and the next day we went into Tokyo Bay, and the Missouri anchored out, and then 4 destroyers were assigned the duty to pick up dignitaries. So we had 65 or so of the Allied high-ranking officers who were going to witness the signing. They didn't all sign it. They were standing there watching the ceremony. And each of the other 3 ships had about that same number of people, and we acted like a taxi service from the wharf to the Missouri, dropped them off, and then anchored close by because we had to take them off and take them back after the ceremony was over.
Right.
So we were close enough we could see what was going on the deck of the Missouri there.
Right. You were up on the bridge where you sort of straining your neck to sort of see what was going on.
Didn't have to. Just stand there and look. There it was.
And just watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the people that were actually on the USS Nicholas that you transported to the ceremony that people will certainly know from their military history, General Stilwell, General Wainwright, Lieutenant General Jimmy Doolittle, I think was on your ship.
Little bitty fella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Major General Curtis LeMay. And then other Allied representatives, 6 from China, 5 from Russia, 7 from Australia, a Canadian, 4 French, including General Leclerc, was on your ship, 5 from the Netherlands, and 1 from New Zealand. And the way you transported them from one ship to the other, talk about that.
Well, we used what's called a breeches buoy. And what you do is you put a rope between the 2 ships, and a chair is hung on that rope, and you pull it, and it pulls them across from one ship to the other. Well, we were very careful because we were transporting dignitaries, and we couldn't drop them and dunk them into the bay.
You don't want to give them a dip. They
no
wouldn't think
dip.
That was as funny as you would.
Yeah, that's right. So we were very careful, and we transported all 65, and we had 2 of those breeches buoys going, so we were doing 2 at a time. And it took some time to do that, but we got them all over there dry.
Right.
And they got aboard ship, and then they all lined up. You've seen the pictures of the actual ceremony, and it just a solid wall of people standing there.
Of the dignitaries.
Of the dignitaries from all over.
Right. When you were standing on the bridge there of the Nicholas and looking over and seeing Admiral Chester Nimitz standing there on the bridge of the Missouri, we talked about this. I want you to tell me about, for a young soldier, only 19 years old at the time, you must have been a little bit starstruck at that, right?
Well, yeah, because you don't get to see an admiral very often. That was the first one I ever saw. It was there. He was standing there watching all the things we were doing. He wasn't looking at me, but he was looking at the activity of actually transporting these people back and forth, to the ship. But it was quite a sight to see him standing there, and he was just leaning on the rail.
Right. As a young sailor, you're thinking, hey, there's the boss.
There's
the main man.
Yeah.
That's more impressive than the president.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly more impressive than seeing MacArthur. He's the Army guy, right?
Yeah, he was the soldier. We weren't too interested.
He was the soldier.
Yeah.
I want you to tell a story that I'd never heard it before about something that happened during that signing and about the table.
The table?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to let you tell
Well, yeah, okay. As I was told by somebody who was there, in Missouri, they said they got everybody around, and they said, "Well, where are we going to put these papers to sign?" I said, "Well, we need a table." "Oh, where are we going to get one?" "Well, the mess hall is full of tables." So they sent a couple of sailors down to the mess hall, and they came back up with a table, and they set it in. They put a nice green cloth on top to make it look nice for the cameras, and so then they signed it all, and everything was done, salutes, thank you, clap, clap, and everybody leaves. 2 sailors put the table back.
In the mess hall?
In the mess hall. And so somebody says, "Where's the table?" "Well, we put it back." "Well, get it, it's a famous table." They didn't know which one they picked up.
They went in the mess hall, they saw all these tables, didn't know which
They're
one
all
it
the
was.
same, exactly.
So this famous table that could be in the Smithsonian now.
Yeah, it's still in the Missouri.
It's still in the Missouri because nobody knows which one it was.
And nobody knows.
And like you told me, if that guy had been smart, he'd have just said, hey, yeah, it's this
It
one
was
right
this
here.
one, yeah.
and he would have, if the man was still alive or if he had gone to his death, knowing that, hey, he didn't know whether that was the right table or not.
But, you know, every table looks exactly alike. We had same tables in the destroyer.
The missing table.
The missing table.
We've got a lot of photographs that I want to see. And before we go to the photographs, I want to tell people that a lot of the photographs that you're about to see come from the website of the USS Nicholas. Mm-hmm. And it's an incredible website, and I urge anybody with any interest in World War II history or certainly Pacific history, it's very easy, www.ussnicholas.org. Go to that website, and you'll see not only a first-person account of his experience from Doug Starr, but about half a dozen others who are on that website, and lots of photographs and history of this magnificent destroyer. Let's go ahead and go to some of the photographs that we have here that we're going to talk. First off, by way of review, there is a young sailor, Douglas Starr, and this was after World War II, right?
Yeah, I'm 20 years old here. Because,
you're an old man there,
yeah,
right?
just turned 20, and that's a sonar rating badge on the left sleeve there. Mm-hmm. That earphones with an arrow going through it.
We talked a little bit last week about the skill of being a sonar man, and of course the first of the ribbons, and you were to accumulate several more ribbons and medals. In your service.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. This is a good picture of you. This is a young Doug Starr and one of your shipmates, right?
Yeah, on the left, yeah.
Yeah, you're on the left, right?
We had just finished sonar school, because there's my rating badge, and his is on his sleeve, but you can't see it.
You said, I want to keep that up just a second, because you said to me before we started this show, and this photograph really brings what you said into focus, that World War II was fought by kids.
Yeah, legal children.
Look at those two faces. I mean, those are kids.
Yeah.
Those are high school looking kids, if that. And you're the one on the left. And these are the kids who, I believe you said in a recent speech that you were born in New Orleans, but you grew up on the Nicholas, right?
In the South Pacific.
That's right. And that's where you grew up. There's the Nicholas, another good photograph.
Yeah.
Of it, and that's a destroyer. Destroyers are small ships by comparison.
Yeah, oh gosh.
They're about a football field long, a little bit more, 376 feet long. And how did you describe its size?
A block long and across the street wide, and it's the most beautiful. If you look at it, it's the most beautiful ship ever designed.
There's a lot packed into a small ship.
Oh boy, there's nothing in it but ammunition.
Well, it's so. I mean, you think of an aircraft carrier and how you can walk on an aircraft carrier, and it's like you're on land or in a building.
Oh, well, this thing was in constant motion. We had 300 enlisted and 30 officers crowded into that thing. And we had 200 men living aft, 100 men living forward, 30 officers living in the forward part of the ship.
And it's called a tin can because it was so small. As a matter of fact, I believe I read something that you wrote that said you go down below at your bunk, and you could actually put your hand against the wall and feel the water rushing by.
Feel the water go by. That's right. It was only about that thick,
right.
quarter-inch thick. Yeah.
Now here's a series of photographs of what we've just been talking about. 2 September 1945. In the foreground of the photograph, or the forewater, I guess it was, on the right side, that's the USS Missouri, and that's the Nicholas alongside on the left. And I guess back behind, is that the other destroyers coming up?
Destroyers, yeah.
But this is the Nicholas alongside.
Yeah.
And you can see the comparison of the two ships and its size, because your ship, the Nicholas on the left, is a football field or more long.
Yeah.
So you think how long that is, you see how long the Missouri is.
And we were about to transfer the dignitaries across. The interpreters and pilots, Japanese.
We've got more photographs. Let's go on to the next one. There's the same time, the Missouri, destroyer. And you're on the other side, about to, about for the signing of the peace agreement.
Right.
That's another good comparison of the size.
See, they had 3 cannons in the mount on the Missouri. We had 1.
Right. Now this is the transport.
That's the breeches buoy with somebody in it, and it's being moved across.
I believe that's one of the Chinese delegates.
Yeah.
That's being moved across from, that picture is taken from the Missouri.
From the Missouri.
Back to the USS Nicholas 449.
Yeah,
Of it
C-449.
coming across. And yeah, I would think that, yeah, when they're right about at that point, you're thinking, let's not dip him now. Let's get him across.
Yeah, that's right. but look at the waves that we're in.
Yes.
You know, that's not a placid
no.
sea.
No, that's, yeah. Yeah, a situation there. Talk about this photograph.
This is in the mess hall where the officers eat, called the wardroom. And if you'll see that the people with the hats on, those are our officers. The people seated, and the fellow on the far left. These are three Japanese. I don't know whether they're pilots or interpreters, but they are three of the Japanese contingent that we had aboard to take us into Sagami Bay because it was mined and we needed to know where not to go. And if you'll notice that the officer standing in the rear, he has a .45 pistol on his belt.
Right, because there's still an issue of trust going on.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
He would have shot them in a friendly sort of way.
Right, in a friendly sort of way. Yeah, okay. Let's move on to... now, you're not in this photograph, but
No,
it's part
sir.
of your cruise book. Talk about what this is.
That's our scoreboard, and that piece of equipment there is a fire control, and it's a radar that we send out a signal and find out where the enemy is, and then the cannons can track that from this equipment. The officer is a fire control officer, and the sailors up on the top, they're all fire control operators. And the officer's pointing out our scoreboard, the airplanes that we shot down, the ships, and submarines that we sank, and that flag in there is the symbol of the Presidential Unit Citation that the Nicholas got for before I went aboard for rescuing survivors of the cruiser Helena that was sunk in the Battle of Kula Gulf.
Fascinating photographs, and again, if viewers want to see these photographs, I'll tell you again, it's ussnicholas.org.
And it's more than that.
And there's a lot more than that. Yeah. Believe me, there's a lot more than that. You can click to every link on there, and you can see lots and lots of pictures aboard both vessels, as a matter of fact. What was the atmosphere, I guess, like? Because I'm thinking about aboard the Nicholas, here you are, you all had spent several months fighting this war at the height of the conflict in the Pacific campaign. Mm-hmm. Fighting the war, as we talked about last week, you yourself were involved in enough campaigns and battles to earn 13 battle stars, kamikaze raids that fortunately your ship was able to miss. And all of a sudden, the whole atmosphere of what's going on is thrown into into politics, into peace movement, into these people that have come aboard your boat, these dignitaries from the different countries, the allied countries, and the USS Missouri. The whole idea of the war and everything that you all were doing on a daily basis sort of changed quickly.
It did. It changed immediately, and now we had all of these people who came aboard were very high-ranking officers, and I was, they were a step or two down from God, and I was 2 jumps up from the apes, and we couldn't associate with them in any way. But we had a signalman who was red-haired, and he had a full red beard. And 2 Russian admirals came up on the bridge when he was on watch, and I was up there on watch. And they spotted that red beard, and they went over and they felt his beard. And yap, 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 yap. And they felt his beard. And they thought that was the grandest thing they'd ever seen, because I don't know what they were talking about. They were talking in Russian. But the word for red and the word for beautiful, that's the same word.
Right.
That's why they call it Red Square. It means beautiful square. And so they kept saying this was the red beard. Well, yeah, we thought it was red, but they were saying it was beautiful.
I see.
Poor guy stood there. He didn't know what to do.
Right. So the language hurdles were involved too. Okay, let's get past September the 2nd, after the surrender. Certainly your duties were not over, and I want to go directly to what you were talking about, where you and 3 other destroyers, I believe, removed some 1,000 POWs from a POW camp in Japan. And talk about that.
Yeah, this was in October, late September, early October. We were sent up 500 miles north of Tokyo to a little town called Sendai on the coast, where there was a POW camp left over. The people in there were from the fall of the Philippines, so they'd been there for 4 years. And we went up, 4 destroyers and a contingent of Marines, to break them out and take them back down to Tokyo to put them in hospitals and take care of them. So we did, and the Marines go ashore fully armed, and the sailors went on liberty. And so we didn't have any weapons or anything. We just walked around town, but they told us, don't go by yourself, go in a group, which we did, but nobody bothered us. And they brought these, about 1,000 of those guys, and we had 250 of them per ship. And the captain told us, no sailor sleeps in his bunk tonight. It's a 500-mile trip, so the bunks are for the POWs. But the POWs didn't want to sleep. They wanted to talk.
Right.
But they wanted to find out what was going on because they knew nothing at all.
Because they hadn't seen a friendly face since, some of them since 1942.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly, or 41.
41.
Yeah, maybe even. And so anyway, we stayed up all night talking, and the next morning, for breakfast, they had gone around to find out what they wanted. They wanted pancakes. And so they cooked up a bunch of pancakes, and we had to help them go down the ladders to the mess hall and carry the tray because they were too weak. You could count the ribs just standing there and the little pot bellies from malnutrition. And they would take 6 or 8 or 10 pancakes and put syrup all over it and butter and all that, take one bite, and they were through because the stomach couldn't handle it. And we'd lead them back up on deck and talk. Whatever you could talk about, they just wanted to talk.
Right.
And we took them back down. We got them into Tokyo, and some went to the hospitals right away. Some were put on ships and sent right back to the States, depending on the condition they were in.
Right.
And then I met one, several months after the war in Los Angeles, and I asked him how he was doing. He said, I don't eat 3 meals a day anymore. I said, what happened? He said, I eat 5 or 6. He said, I can't eat enough to last me for 4 hours. He says, I'd eat a little bit, and then 2 hours later, I eat a little bit more because my stomach won't hold it. But I'm told that eventually they got over that.
Right.
Back to normal.
I know this is a very vivid memory for you, for sure. Need to move on. November the 30th, you went home for 30 days, went back. You were discharged in January of 1947, I believe.
Right.
And you went back to school. You went to Tulane, and then eventually to LSU.
Yeah.
And because you wanted to be a journalist. You were a journalist, and that's where you learned the journalism trade initially.
Yes.
In school at LSU, right?
Right.
Right.
And then I got a job. Well, then I went back to Korea.
Right.
I got married, and 8 months later, I got recalled for Korea, and we went over there. And
on the USS Walk, another destroyer.
Yeah, but it was a bigger destroyer. The
Right.
Nicholas was 2,100 tons. The Walk was 2,200 tons. You can't tell the difference.
No, 100 tons, give or take, right?
Give or take. So, but it's the same size and everything.
Right.
And I was over there, and we opened the siege of Wonsan, which turned out to be the longest naval siege in history, because it went on through the whole war. And we were there from the beginning, and we got shot at, and same as in World War II. I mean,
Right.
We shot them, they shot us, but we never got hit.
Right,
So.
right. As a matter of fact, you were fortunate, I believe, a month after you left the USS Walk, it was mined and hit a mine, and some 26 were killed and 40
Yes.
injured.
It was my compartment, and the people who slept around me, they didn't even find the bodies. They just went out into the sea.
Right. We've just got about 4 minutes left to sort of wrap it up from there up until now, but I know that you, just very quickly, you did work for the Associated Press.
I did.
For several years, and you were at Florida State and North Texas, and eventually came to A&M in 1986.
Right.
Talk a little bit about your journalism career.
Well, the most interesting part was when I was in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi. I was there for 8 years, and that was when the desegregation order came down from the Supreme Court, and we were covering all the activities that the state was trying to do to prevent integration of the races. They wanted to keep the separation of the races. Didn't work because the laws were against it. But it was great for a reporter because there was more news going on every day. You'd find something going on to write stories about.
Right.
And I never did any columns, or opinion pieces. I just did straight news because that was my job.
Right.
Then you want to go about the other part too?
You went to Florida. You went to Florida. You were at Florida State. That's when you first got into the education part of it.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And in North Texas for 12 years, and you've been at A&M since 1986.
I taught at North Texas, and then got picked up down here. And then when the journalism department was abolished, they pulled me over there to the agricultural leadership, education, communication, teaching, journalism.
And public relations.
And public relations.
And a lot of your students want to go into public relations.
Yes,
right?
they do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, when we had a journalism department, more than half of them wanted to go into public relations.
Indeed.
So, yeah.
Indeed. In the time we have left, I want you to talk about your family. You mentioned that you were married in 1949. You were married for 54 years to Millie, and you lost her 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
You and Millie had 5 children, 4 who survived today, and I know you're very proud of them. But I don't want to get away without saying that this past April the 12th was a very special day for you, and I'll let you make the announcement. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Well, I fell in love with a woman I met in 1954 when I first went to Mississippi, and she had a family, and I had a family, and we were together for a long, long time, visiting back and forth, and then I got transferred over to Florida, and we would visit back and forth, families, and then she got divorced and remarried, and her second husband died, and then my wife died. And last August, we renewed our acquaintance, and what's today? The 7th? 5 days ago, we got married.
Well, congratulations to you and Carolyn. And right now, I know it's a commuter marriage, but
yeah,
but that's the way it goes.
Well,
you're very
things
happy.
will change.
You're very happy, and that'll change.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your service, and thank you for being with us. Incredible story,
Tom,
Dr.
I
Starr.
enjoyed it very much. Appreciate it.
Douglas Starr's World War II experience started when he was 17, and before he was 20, he had seen a lifetime of history. His service then for our country is as honorable as his service remains today as a journalism teacher of young men and women at the A&M School of Agriculture. We salute Douglas Starr for that service and thank him for sharing his remarkable stories and images. I'm Tom Turbeville. Join us next time on Veterans of the Valley.